If you experienced or even knew what I had to put up with in the hospital as a patient with sickle cell disease, you would understand how hard it is to actually give forgiveness to those who really hurt me in the institution of medicine. But it was absolutely necessary. Let's talk about how and why I have chosen to forgive the people who've hurt me. Hello y'all, welcome to my channel. My name is Christelle Solomon. I am an aspiring physician scientist that's in a very transitionary stage of life as a patient with sickle cell disease, but also a recent transplant recipient. Sickle cell disease is a hereditary blood condition that affects millions of people worldwide. It is really devastating and causes significant pain and organ damage and even a shortened lifespan. As a person with sickle cell disease, I have experienced a lot of mistreatment in the hospital at the hands of clinicians who I thought were supposed to help me, but I ended up often feeling worse pain-wise and also feeling really judged and mistreated and abandoned by the medical system that I went to in order to receive the care that I needed. And my story is not unique. There are so many other patients with sickle cell disease that experience these, inequities in the healthcare system as well. And there have been many published papers to support this data as well. Now, I went through a very difficult phase of working through my feelings and choosing to forgive the people who I ended up being really significantly hurt by physically and mentally. And even though it was a hard thing for me to do, I think it was really freeing and wonderful. And so I want to be able to share my experience in hopes of encouraging you to forgive someone that you are maybe not so happy about. So I am going to be talking about why I decided to forgive and how I worked through the process of forgiveness, because you can't just say, at least I can't just say like I forgive you and it's done. It's a long process because I'm petty, okay? So it was a little bit difficult for me, but we made it. So one of the biggest reasons that I decided to forgive the people who hurt me in the hospital was because it gave me the opportunity to reclaim my authority. I feel like unforgiveness for me is an opportunity to give the other person power because they are now controlling my mood, my emotions, my reactions, as opposed to me being able to take authority over the feelings that I have, understand the difference between my feelings versus reality, and then be able to give forgiveness in a way that frees me from them entirely. The person who's done me wrong, I am not connected to them in any way except through this link of unforgiveness. So being able to forgive them releases them of their power over me and also gives me the authority to claim my life in the way that I want to live it, as opposed to in a reactionary way that is dependent on the way the other person is acting. Does that make sense? So another reason why I decided to ultimately go the route of forgiveness is because everybody makes mistakes, and I have to really understand that. Otherwise, I'll just be mad at everybody because one way or another, people are going to let me down, and I'm going to let people down. And nobody's perfect, including doctors. And so being able to understand that, all right, people have made mistakes, whether it is malicious or whether it is totally by accident and out of ignorance, it will happen. And learning to practice forgiveness in those settings, I feel like it's beneficial for me because I know for a fact it's gonna happen again. Learning to give forgiveness is a way for me to make peace with the fact that people are gonna make mistakes and nobody's perfect. And for me, like, the opportunity to share why I am not happy with you or how you impacted me negatively, that to me is far more impactful than maybe choosing a route of unforgiveness where I just hold a grudge against you or don't talk anything out. I feel that understanding that everyone makes mistakes allows me to use forgiveness as an opportunity to understand that fact, but also to point out what can be improved. And I feel like you can't get to that point without forgiveness. Another reason why I am choosing to forgive is that forgiveness allows for the opportunity to right wrongs. And I am more interested in how people can improve as opposed to holding a grudge against them. And the reason why I choose forgiveness is because forgiveness acknowledges the error. Forgiveness acknowledges the wrong, but forgiveness also says that I understand that you made a mistake and I know that you have the opportunity to do better. And so, especially in the case of medicine, and because I am an aspiring physician myself, I want to be able to be a source of, hey, what you did was wrong, but I'm not going to hold that against you. Here's how you can improve, and I know you can. And so forgiveness allows me to view the person and view the people that hurt me in a more positive light, and it gives me hope that they can change. And I really do, for most instances of where I am hurt and mistreated in the hospital, it is out of genuine misunderstanding or mismanaging of their own biases. And while that is totally unacceptable, I recognize that there is opportunity for growth, and most clinicians would take that opportunity for growth. And they might hesitate, they might be mad about it, they might be defensive, because that's what happens a lot of times. But I would still rather give the opportunity for growth than for us to both acknowledge that we're in a different place and then me not later have the opportunity to do better. Me not later have the opportunity to experience better, and you not later to have the opportunity to be better. And so yeah, I truly believe that forgiveness gives an opportunity for improvement in a safe environment. Another, if this might be the most important reason, but I'm not sure, this is in no particular order, but another reason why I've chosen to forgive these clinicians is because I have been forgiven so many times. Who am I to not give that forgiveness back? Who am I to hold forgiveness as something only I can receive, but I'm not allowed to give? And there are all sorts of horrible things that happen, like if one of my family members was murdered or something like that. Like, that is obviously so much harder to forgive than what I'm talking about. But I still think it's important for me to acknowledge the fact that I've done bad things too, and people have forgiven me. And so, and that forgiveness has been a weight removed from my shoulders. That forgiveness was an opportunity for us to reconnect, was an opportunity for us to make peace with the past, even if we don't reconnect. And there's so much power and beauty in that. And obviously I am a really strong believer in Jesus and the Lord, the Holy Spirit, the Trinity. And I think that it's really important because God forgave me even though he knew I was going to make mistakes. And God forgave the people of Israel even while they were persecuting him. And so I think, if I am to receive this relentless and undeserving grace and forgiveness from the Lord, I feel that, and also he asks us to be able to do that. He asks us to forgive 70 times 7 times, or 7 times 7. Just basically don't count your forgiveness. Be able to do that. And I think that for me is really important, acknowledging that I have been forgiven, and so therefore I want to share the gift of forgiveness to others. So another reason why I ended up deciding, okay, I think it's time to forgive the people who've done me wrong is because, unforgiveness causes me to harbor so much bitterness in my heart. Like, I don't know if I told y'all about this, but I've had many bad hospital experiences, but I had a particularly horrible hospital experience in February of 2021. And when I tell you I was so mad, like livid. Every day I woke up just like angry, like why did this happen to me? And then I found the hospital note that was written up, and it said all sorts of egregious things about me, and I was even angrier. Like, I went to my hematology appointment that morning after reading it, and my blood pressure is like 150/90, and my blood pressure is always low. And they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm actually not, because I'm really upset." And thankfully, my clinician believed me. We had a long-standing relationship, so she understood what was going on, and also she knows me. And so she was like, "I believe you. Like, please don't stress about what this hospital note says." But y'all, I was bitter for a grip, and I still fight bitterness all the time. I was bitter throughout medical school. I was bitter every time I went to the hospital and people treated me wrong, and that bitterness was so heavy. that bitterness was so heavy and it weighed me down. It made me angry. It made me unable to see the good in the world and in the people around me. And it just, on top of the lack of the insane bitterness, it was a lack of patience as well. And so I think that I know that unforgiveness allows me to soften my heart and to move away from bitterness and into accepting and then progressing effectively, efficiently, and productively. And so forgiveness is absolutely necessary, because otherwise I'll be a mad ass beep all the time, okay? I'm petty. I'm naturally petty. Especially when I'm really, really, really right. So unforgiveness, I need it. Another really important reason why I don't like to hang on unforgiveness is because unforgiveness does not equate to justice. Unforgiveness does not lead to justice. And, in fact, I feel like forgiveness allows justice to occur effectively. Understanding that I forgive you, I see you despite this mistake, but because of your mistake, you have to endure XYZ consequences for your learning, for your good. And I think that forgiveness is an opportunity to lead to justice, while unforgiveness very much does not equate to justice. And so unforgiveness is literally just hurting me. Like, there's a saying where, like, bitterness or holding a grudge or unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Like, me not forgiving you does not change anything. You're gonna go about your life still doing ratchet things to other patients. That doesn't help either of us. Neither of us learned. I'm hardened, I'm bitter, I'm angry, and you're out here just doing what you do, hurting other people. And so unforgiveness is not justice. And so what's the point? Another really important reason why I choose to forgive is because I recognize that a lot of my growth and personal development and a lot of the opportunities that I've been offered, like this transplant, were born out of this hurt, were born out of the injustice that I experienced. And so I don't know, forgiveness is not a way for me to equate it or to give back, but because I recognize that God still turned what was meant to hurt me, like he meant it for good still. And so, like, understanding that good still came to me out of this bad thing that happened, like, it is kind of like out of the outpouring of the generosity of God that I want to forgive others. And yeah, so those are like my overarching reasons of why. But then now you're asking, girl, how did you do that? Because you don't just snap your fingers and do your stuff, but we could do it out yourself. Let me see you do it. Like, the forgiveness doesn't just come like that. So let's go into the how, because that's the tangible part y'all are probably looking for. Okay, y'all, let's just get one thing straight. Like, this is whether or not you believe in God or an atheist or you're agnostic or faith, like it, or you have a different religion, like, it doesn't matter to me. But for me, I need that prayer. Like, I had to pray a lot, and I had a lot of people interceding for me in prayer, because y'all, I was mad. I was big mad. And I remember my cousin calling me every single day and like praying with me and praying for me. Sometimes I just like didn't say anything. I was just crying on the other line, and she was praying for me, and that honestly was immensely helpful. And I literally have to call on the Holy Spirit, like, help me to forgive, because y'all, I'm not about to, like I just want to fight right now. And so the Holy Spirit and the Heavenly Father and my friends like praying over me, and my friends praying with me, and me praying to God, like pleading for help, that's the way I was able to do a lot of my forgiveness. Like, that's how I do life, but especially something like forgiveness, because that's not natural to me. No, I don't do that. You mess with me, we don't mess around no more. But the Lord said, listen, I can help you. And I said, okay, I'll receive the help. Another way that I was able to forgive these clinicians that really hurt me was through lots of external processing of my emotions. I am not really good at processing hurt and emotions. I kind of like, I'm always go, go, go. I just got to move on to the next. You just have to move on. That's life. And sometimes that's necessary, because you do have to keep going. Like, unfortunately, life doesn't stop for us, but that's not really realistic. Just be like, oh, it's fine. Like, at some point it will catch up with you. And it always catches up with me. And so, I think it took a lot of work for me to say, okay, you know what? I'm feeling really angry right now. And so I would open up my notebook and journal, or I would open my voice to text a lot because I was still experiencing a lot of pain and I didn't want to like type on the phone. I didn't actually want to sit up at my desk. So I would take my phone, open a voice note, and just journal a lot. And actually I have like a section in my Notion called Come to God First. And that's where I bring all of my that's where I bring everything really, but especially my hurts where I need a rant and I'm like, something is bothering me, Lord. Like, that's where I go and I get it all out. And in the process of writing that down, like, I am able to better understand myself and why I'm angry, why I'm hurt. And it's funny because I go to writing first because that's something that I can do by myself. But the thing that God has been showing me that's so important is that I do need to talk it out with other people. And as someone who is very private, as someone who has always been taught to keep things to yourself, and implicitly I just feel like I need to handle my stuff on my own, I have learned that it is so important to talk it out with someone else. And this is where a trusted friend or a family member comes in, and my cousin was that person. I would tell her everything that I was feeling, that I was so angry, and she would listen to me and she would encourage me, she would pray for me, she would support my feelings, validate my feelings. And that really made me feel like I had a sense of belonging, that I was validated in my feelings, but also that I didn't have to stay there. I have so many friends who helped me to talk through my emotions, and the sitting and the thinking and the writing and the meditating is all important, and I love doing that, y'all. That's the first thing I go to. But in the long run, it is really important for me to also talk to someone I trust. And that brings me to my next tip, which is going to therapy, because I didn't realize I had so much stuff to unpack until I started unpacking it myself. And I was like, whoa, I think this is might be too big for me to handle by myself. And so I ended up talking to a lot of palliative care specialists who were at the hospital that I was receiving the bone marrow transplant or the stem cell transplant. And as I talked through some things with them, I was like, oh my God, I'm unearthing stuff that I also didn't realize was there. And it was really powerful because it helped me to be able to acknowledge a part of me that I was not aware of. And then they were like, hey, do you need some therapy? And I was like, yes, please. And so I ended up talking to a therapist about a lot of my feelings. And even though sometimes I feel like I've had a few therapists in my lifetime and for different things, and I do feel like it has been difficult to find a therapist who understands sickle cell disease and the sickle cell pain that comes with it and the gravity of it. I feel like having a therapist at the hospital was really important because they have seen patients like me. And I was able to find different coping mechanisms. They gave me lots of techniques to use, and also I had a therapist that I got through Faithful Counseling, and she was amazing in terms of forgiveness, and she shared some of her own experiences that helped me to feel less alone and to show me that forgiveness was possible, and this was how she did it. And she gave me they have little homework assignments that you can do, and so working through those, even though I felt in the moment man, how is this going to lead to forgiveness, over time it really did. One of the most important things that I need to remind myself of in order to help me to forgive is to remember that there are so many good things and people in this world and in my life, and remembering that, taking a posture of gratefulness, taking a posture of taking a moment to recognize the good, helps me not stay in this place of being bitter and angry at someone. And so I think that recognizing that I can be grateful for so many things and so many people, that unforgiveness is not worth it for me. And so I don't know why. I don't tangibly know how that translates, but try it out. Taking a posture of gratefulness and recognizing how much good is going on in your life. Even the little things, the fact that I have running water, the fact that I have a roof over my head, I have my cute little string lights that make me feel happy. I'm talking about the minutia. I put on my hat and I'm like, wow, I actually really like that I have this hat and I can go outside. I stop and think about all the good things that I have in this moment right now. That helps me to have a posture of more grace, more gratefulness, and so I'm not as angry and bitter. I'm not quick to unforgive. It makes me happier, and so in my happiness, in my excess, I'm able to give on to others through the process of forgiveness. And one thing that I forgot to mention in terms of my first point, which was prayer, y'all, I literally prayed for the people who hurt me. I prayed for them. I prayed for their enlightenment. I prayed for grace over them. I prayed for forgiveness from God over their sins, and I prayed for healing for whatever they're going through. And that was very freeing as well, because the people that hurt you are people too. Hurt people hurt people. So if they hurt me, they're probably hurt by someone else. And so I took the time to really pray for those people. And even though I'm like saying that prayer a lot, please Lord, help this man not make that dang mistake again, that's how I feel. But as I continue praying, my heart softens, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on in their life, but I hope they can get some help. They are taken care of, that they feel loved, because it's hard out here, okay? It's hard out here. So I would say that's probably the most important how. Praying for the people who hurt you changes your heart. It changes your heart. There's no way you can walk out of that prayer still being like the way you walked in. So that's probably the biggest how. And even if you don't believe in prayer or faith, I think even meditating or saying positive things or saying positive affirmations of hope, like, I hope this person recognizes how they hurt me. I hope this person is able to grow in this way. I hope this person is able to get help for the things. I think we can speak positive affirmations and hope over anyone, and it doesn't have to be in the form of prayer if you don't believe in that. But I think the act of wishing well is also very important. I choose prayer because I think prayer is really powerful, and I have seen it work in my life, and so I use it so that I can be a conduit for it to work in other people's lives. So anywho, this video has probably been long enough, so thank you for joining me. If you've listened this far, comment down below if you want to forgive someone this year. We still have 12 weeks left of the year, y'all. It's now time. So anywho, I really appreciate that you listened to my story. I hope that you can understand that as a patient with sickle cell disease, I want better. I want better for myself. I want better for other patients with sickle cell disease. I want better for other patients with chronic illnesses that are neglected. And I really hope that through seeing this video, you can understand that we are hurting. And so when patients get mad at you, or when we're like bitter about things that happen in our lives, it's because we're hurting. Life is hard, and we've been like roughed up in it. And so if you're a medical student watching, especially, really sit on this and remind yourself to give grace to patients, and not to be the clinician who ends up hurting a patient who now they gotta go through all this unforgiveness. Okay, so anywho, I don't want to keep rambling, so thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Toodles.